Hi, I'm Tristan. I'm 13 years old. I'm curious, I'm passionate, and I'm sure you are too. Join me on a quest to dig deep and find out new things. Welcome to Youth Voices. Good evening. Welcome to my program. This is your radio host, Tristan Pang, on Planet FM 104.6. Youth Voices. Good to have your company. In my program, I'll share with you some things that are inspirational, including interviews, stories, quotes, and whatever I find interesting and inspiring. This is my 4th show. I really enjoyed being your radio host. The feedback from you is very encouraging. Please keep writing to me. Let's talk. This is part 2 of my featured guest, Andrew Patterson's interview. Andrew is my mentor. Receiving and reading Andrew's emails becomes one of the highlights of my day. Andrew helps expand my horizon about the world. Because of Andrew, I love the world and the people even more. Andrew is a passionate youth advocate. He has extensive experience supporting young people. Andrew is a broadcaster where he has his own weekly program at Radio Live. He is also a professional speaker, MC, and writer. Despite his life, he still finds time to mentor and support almost 100 young people. He can probably enter the Guinness World Record for the most mentees in the world at a time. He also spares one day every week visiting schools, including primary, intermediate, and high schools, to help build the student confidence level. He never misses any opportunities, which can help young people soar. He has ran numerous workshops, including the Youth Summit at the Festival of Education last year. He is also organising a Big Question lecture series for high school students at the University of Auckland, aiming to inspire and prepare the high school students for their university studies. Recognising Andrew's passion and leadership abilities, New Zealand Association for Gifted Children, of which I'm a member, has nominated him for its election. He has successfully been elected as president for 2015. In part 1 of my interview last week, Andrew talked about his passion in helping young people, including students in the low decile areas and the gifted children, and what he thought of the education system and the way to improve it. Andrew is very busy at his own career and the voluntary work, but he can still travel to over 50 countries. He must be very good at time management. I began the second part of my interview by asking Andrew how does he manage to do so many tasks, and how does he prioritise his work?
Yes, I think you're right on the point of having to be very good on time management. I think that's something that I've always been quite good at. I like to be to keep myself very, very busy. I don't like being bored, and so I tend to pack a lot in, and therefore that means that you have to be very good at managing your time. So, yeah, I allocate my time very carefully. I'm very much a list sort of a person. I write lots of to-do lists every day and every week of everything I need to get done. I plan things. It doesn't always mean that everything goes according to plan, because obviously things change, and you have to be flexible around that. But yeah, I think being productive is something that I really like. Being able to reflect at the end of every day and think, well, didn't I, all of the stuff that I got done and all the stuff that I still need to do. So, I think that's important. You can learn these skills. I mean, time management is just a skill that you can learn through just being organised. That's the most important thing. And the other thing I think it's really important is that, if you commit to doing something, that you actually go ahead and do it. There's an old saying that if you want something done, give it to a busy person, and that's quite true, because invariably, busy people just like to make things happen all the time, and that's something that I would say about myself. But yeah, being organised is a really good skill to get, particularly young people. If they can learn that skill early, it's something that they find very beneficial as they move through their career.
Yes. So finally, I have 2 signature questions to conclude with. So the first is, tell us 3 people who have influenced you so our young listeners can learn from them and why.
Yeah, well, three people that I thought about this question a little bit, and I think the first person who's really influenced me, I think a lot of the work that I'm doing in education, is Sal Khan, who created Khan Academy. I was very fortunate a couple of years ago to spend an hour or so with him when I was in the United States, and he is an incredibly inspiring individual. I also relate to his own situation where he wasn't working in education, much like myself, came from the outside, and through a chance opportunity, basically lucked on this idea to create this website that we know has gone on to mean that up to 20 million students at any one time are logged on, learning a whole range of subjects. And it's a fantastic example of, taking an idea and really running with it. So Sal Khan's up there. Somebody else who has done or been incredibly inspiring for me is Terence Wallace, who's created the End Zone project in Auckland, which is a project that allows Māori and Pacifica boys and girls to attend Auckland Grammar in the case of the boys and Epsom Girls Grammar in the case of the girls, and he's established hostels for them, and he really has almost given up his life really to make this happen, and I do some work as a tutor there helping the boys and the girls, and I think that's just incredible that somebody would literally do so much to create that opportunity for those young people. And I think the third person is somebody that sadly I never actually got to meet, but I did interview him a couple of times but before he died a couple of years ago, and that was Sir Paul Callaghan, who was a remarkable individual, a very successful scientist, very highly regarded, but also somebody who had an amazing vision for New Zealand and its future. And I was always very inspired by listening to Sir Paul Callaghan speak. And I've read a lot of his books and read a lot of his lectures, and he's somebody who even though he's no longer with us, continues to inspire me in the work that I do.
Yes, that's interesting. So now my last question for today is that can you share with us something that you've heard or read that really inspired you?
Yeah, the book that I've read, and I do read a lot of books, I'm a very keen reader, although I have to say that as a youngster I wasn't a very keen reader. I became a very keen reader probably in my mid to late 20s when I really got into reading. But I think a book that I read a couple of years ago that was very influential, or had a big influence on me, was a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was one of the few survivors of the death camps, and during the Second World War, he was a survivor of Auschwitz, which is probably the most famous of the German concentration camps. And he wrote a truly extraordinary book, and he wrote it in about 9 days after he was released, because he couldn't record any of his thinking, while he was in the camps. That they were denied, any writing materials. So he sat down and he wrote this book, and it sold over 30 million copies, and it consistently rates in the top 50 books of all time. And he concludes the book with this line: the meaning of your life is to help others find the meaning of theirs. And I think it's a wonderful way to think about how you can live your life. I actually used that quote in concluding my own TED Talk, which I delivered last year. But it's a line that I think sums up life perfectly. And I think if we lived by that mantra, that the world could potentially be perhaps a better place than it is right now.
Yes, that's another book to add to my reading list. So thank you for taking the time to be interviewed, Andrew.
It's a pleasure, Tristan. It's really nice to be with you, and good luck with the success of the program. I'm sure it's going to be very popular.
Thank you. It would be great if our world has more Andrew Pattersons. With him, our country, our world, and our people will be better. If you want to know more about Andrew, please visit the Youth Voices Facebook page. You find his biography and the links to his talks and interviews, including his TED Talk and the talk at the University of Auckland Faculty of Education graduation ceremony. Let's quote. Buddha said, "Thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candles will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. So be generous. Start sharing." Let's be inspired. Chopsticks from academictips.org. A woman who had worked all her life to bring about good was granted one wish. Before I die, let me visit both hell and heaven. Her wish was granted. She was whisked off to a great banqueting hall. The tables were piled high with delicious food and drinks. Around the tables sat miserable, starving people, as wretched as could be. Why are they looking like this? She asked the angel who accompanied her. Look at their arms, the angel replied. She looked and saw that attached to the people's arms were long chopsticks secured above the elbow. Unable to bend their elbows, the people aimed the chopsticks at the food, missed every time, and sat hungry, frustrated, and miserable. Indeed, this is hell. Take me away from here. She was then whisked off to heaven. Again, she found herself in a great banqueting hall, with tables piled high. Around the table sat people, laughing joyful. No chopsticks, I suppose, she said. Oh yes, they are. Look, just in hell they are long and attached above the elbow. But look, here people have learnt to feed one another. When there's love, kindness, and hope, everything is possible. It shows how different and contented it is when we learn to adopt and work in positive direction. Differences between heaven and hell. Let's laugh. A 3-year-old walked over to a pregnant lady while waiting for his mother in the doctor's surgery. Why is your stomach so big? He asked. I'm having a baby, she replied. Is the baby in your stomach? He asked, with his big eyes. Yes, it is, she says. Is it a good baby? He asked, with a puzzled look. Oh yes, a really good baby, the lady replied. Shocked and surprised, he asked, then why did you eat him? A doctor says to his patient, I have bad news and worse news. Oh dear, what's the bad news? Asked the patient. The doctor replied, you only have 24 hours to live. That's terrible, said the patient. How can the news possibly be worse? The doctor replied, I've been trying to contact you since yesterday. Let's explore. Here are some fun facts about New Zealand. So in 1996, a man broke into a radio station in Wanganui and took the manager hostage, demanding that they play the Muppet song, Rainbow Connection. Haha, I hope it won't happen in Planet FM here. So the world's longest name for hill is in Hawke's Bay, with 85 letters. I don't think I can pronounce it, but let me try. Taumata Wakatagihanga Ko Ao O Tamatia Turi, Pukaka Pikiki Mauga Horo Nuku Pokai Wenua Kitanatahu. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, only 5% of New Zealand's population is human, actually. The rest are all animals. Another fact is that New Zealand is home to the world's smallest dolphin species. And also, New Zealand is home to the most species of penguin than any other country. So now, for something political, in 1893, New Zealand became the first country to give women the right to vote. Now, something about New Zealand roads. Baldwin Street is in Dunedin and is the world's steepest street. The road has a gradient of 1 in 2.86 at the steepest section, a 38% grade. About 1/3 of the country is protected national park. 90 Miles Beach is actually only 90 kilometers long. And the man who pioneered plastic surgery, Harold Gillies, was a Kiwi. So for today, that's it from me, Tristan Pang. Thank you for listening. Please write to me on Facebook. I need your support. And don't forget to like Youth Voices on Facebook. Goodbye. me again next Saturday at 5:20 p.m. to dig deeper, or listen anytime online at planetaudio.org.nz/youthvoices. Youth Voices.